Well, thank you very much for taking some time with us here today. My name is Chris Thiede. I'm the managing editor of commARCH magazine. Suzette, I guess if you could start off just by telling us about yourself, just tell us your name and then your position and your company, and I guess what your role is or what you do.
Okay, my name is Suzette Subance, and I am one of the managing executives over at TPG Architecture, which is a New York-based architectural firm. And I am also one of the studio creative directors. My studio really focuses on workplace, but I do have a very wide portfolio in terms of different business sectors and a very diverse practice group. So TPG works in healthcare, strategy, workplace, hospitality, you name it, we do it pretty much.
Great. So going off of the background that I was given about you, one of the things that I'm sure that you provided this information is that life beyond the design industry and especially motherhood has kind of transformed your career. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that. I guess explain that how it's transformed your career to start off.
Becoming a mother is a pivotal point in any woman's life, and actually just becoming a parent in any person's life. It really puts a lot more strain. Your focus starts to pivot, and for me, what it's done for me professionally is I've been able to really look to my team holistically, like really look at the holistic approach on projects and really looking into ways of empowering my team. What does that mean? Is really trying to see ways that I can make them do the best work that they can and also make me the best manager and leader that I can be. And what does that really entail is being as clear as possible about directives, setting paths early on, setting schedules early on, so that everyone is in communication. I think one of the most important things is the line of communication is critical. And it's not only with clients, but also with the team. One of the things that I found when I became a mother is like, I can't do everything. No matter how much you try and you want to, you can't do everything. And that is probably the one thing that I realized. And I realized that, I need the support, and it's okay. It's, I think that's one of the things as a professional, it's really hard sometimes to reach out for support. And I think that's something that's humbling, but it's also something that it gives you almost the permission to say, you know what, all the answers don't lie within me. My team brings something to the table. What is my team bringing to the table? So, I think what's unique about architecture and interior design is it is a collaborative exercise, a collaborative profession. It doesn't lie with one person. So if anything, that has become more on the forefront in what I do and how I work with people every day.
So I guess how has it manifested itself in your work? I mean, how has your approach perhaps changed, or how has the designs that you're creating and that kind of thing, how does the process, I guess, change for you?
So I think from a logistics standpoint, it definitely starts with, having, that really clear design brief with clients and trying to engage with them early on and have them as a part of the process. So there's more of that back and forth. The way I work is a very collaborative way, even with my clients, not only internally, but externally. So they're part of that discussion. So they are a part of the dialogue that goes back and forth. And that's probably the most exciting part of it, because if they're part of the dialogue, then, we're all sharing within this responsibility of creating their new home. And that's something that I feel that once clients are engaged in that way, they become even more, they claim even more ownership. It no longer becomes the us versus them conversation, it's the we conversation, because everyone's involved and the success of the project is in everyone's best interest. I know that sounds obvious because obviously the client always wants a successful project, but I think in the past there was these thoughts of, those designers or those architects, they're just going to put things that are not as realistic and it's going to be hard to maintain. And that's not what we want to do. We want to create things that are realistic and things that they can maintain, things that will evolve as the business evolves. So I find that I begin that dialogue with the client a lot earlier, and it becomes a part of a collaboration. So it's a back and forth. Also, what we like to do is really establish that clear communication on, okay, what are the schedules? What are we looking at for the next 3 months, 6 months? What are the deliverables in that time? So we can all pace ourselves. One of the things that I really feel strongly about is, I don't want to have burnout on my team. I don't want the team to have burnout. I don't want burnout because, you know what, at home, I have another set of responsibilities. So if we set these clear directives and say what to do when, and it's really laying out that ground, laying out that playing field and getting the client to buy into it so they can also plan. So it's this communication of back and forth. And what that allows for is to give us the leeway to create freely within the boundaries. So if within those first 2 weeks, you're setting these ground rules, the next 2 weeks you're doing this, and the client is aware of it, there's a mutual understanding on what we're going to be discussing and how we're going to be doing it. Obviously things change, but having that framework is really important. I find that's really important for me and for the team to be able to work in an efficient manner. I think if one thing that has become clearly evident is the idea of hyper efficiency. And some of the people at my firm probably hate me for this sometimes, but sometimes it might be shorter meetings, trying to get to the point a little bit faster. And part of that's being a mother, and it's prioritizing, but it's also, we don't have the luxury of time anymore. It's even becoming more pressured now than it was before. But, it's really being able to prioritize what are the things that need to get done. And I run my house the same way.
So you talked earlier about needing support and being okay with the idea of asking for help. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit. I mean, do you mean that in the professional sense or at home or a little bit of both?
So I think it's a little bit of both. One of the things I have 2 children. I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old right now. When I was pregnant with my second child, one of my good friends gave me Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In. And for the working mom, it was something that really resonated with me. This idea of your partner becoming, taking 50-50. It's not just you raising your child, it's you and your partner. And I think that resonated in that I didn't need to do it all. And having someone outside to say that, there were many other factors in the book about just women in leadership, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but the idea of engaging and saying, hey, we're in this together. I think as a woman, sometimes I don't want to overgeneralize, but there is this feeling of sometimes, I've got this, I'm going to take care of it all. And I think what was the most beneficial thing about the book is saying, it takes more than one person to raise a family. Mm-hmm. And I know it's really challenging for single parents, but if you're lucky enough to have a partner or have family around, it's okay. It's okay to do that. And, you lead that also into my professional career. And, I'm one partner amongst 14. And my other partners are there to provide support, whether it's project support, financial, like if there's things we're working out, or organization, looking to other people, to what they bring to the table. We all have different strengths, and it's really tapping into what each person's strengths are. At the same token, you're also looking at what your strengths are. There might be things that you may not be, or I might not be strong enough on. However, I know that there might be someone else who can give me that answer a much quicker way. And that kind of leads into this, the conversation I started with, like where we have a very diverse practice, a team of teams, we call it, which was named after the book. We took a lot of this idea of having more of a network of different practice areas that we can draw upon in terms of expertise. So, if we're working on, if I'm working on a very large scale campus and we're doing a large foods facility, I might tap into our hospitality practice and say, hey, what are you guys doing today that might influence me? And it's again, looking at your network and leveraging your network. I think that's the most important thing here. And sometimes that network beyond your own company. It might be going to a friend of yours or someone you saw at a symposium or a conference. I think the one great thing about social media is you can reach out to these people. There are no boundaries. There are ways that you can reach out to people and say, hey, I saw you at such and such. I'm working on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And that's what's so amazing. And one of the great things about architecture and interior design is we have such a welcoming community. We are a community, and we should be leveraging our community to help each other get better. I really challenge all of us to do that, because that is the only way we grow, and that is the only way we get better, is to really engage all of us. And it's always to the benefit for the collective.
So yeah, that kind of leads into one of my other, I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit. One of my other questions was, I guess, talk a little bit about the environment in the architecture industry, and whether it's architecture specifically or related industries and related businesses. Talk about the environment for women, and has it changed over the years, and if so, how?
So I believe it has changed. I think it's been predominantly a male-dominated profession, but it has been changing over the past couple of years. And we want to see more of it. I would say you see it more in some of the larger interior design / architectural firms is where you see more women in leadership roles, where you see it at Gensler, you see it at HOK, you see it at different firms. But I think you need to see, women do need to be in more leadership positions. I think part of it, and I'm going to, I want to kind of, how do you foster a leader? And, part of it is when a lot of women are starting a family, it becomes very challenging to stay within the industry. And this goes across all industries. A couple of years back, we were all talking about the brain drain, right? Where you were having these highly educated women that were just leaving industry, business sectors in general. We're talking about, Harvard graduates, Stanford graduates who were just leaving. And, they really wanted to focus on their families. And some part of that, I think there was this idea of support, like, how am I supposed to support my family? How am I supposed to be, how do I nurture my family? And, that's where, to me, you look towards, how do I support that first mother? Or and this is for me as a profession, how do I support that person? If I see this person as someone who could be a great future leader, and how can I support her or him, because it might be a single dad or a gay couple, like, how do I support them to keep them in the workforce? Because, the first couple of years are the most challenging. And if we can get them to move beyond that, or to stay engaged beyond it, then we're starting to hit stride. And then you will be able to give them the support. And how do I do that? Definitely flex hours, work from home some days. If you have a doctor's appointment, your kid has a doctor's appointment, I get it. I've had that in my life too. So how as a manager, how can I be more flexible? And by giving people a little bit of leeway, a little bit of flexibility, you keep them engaged, because we're all better to having more of the population represented at a leadership level. So, how do you get women into leadership is you got to start when they're 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, into their early 40s, when they're having they're building their family, and they need the support to stay engaged. And I think, what's interesting about the professional we're talking about is it's a very personal profession. People don't become an architect or an interior designer or furniture designer or an industrial designer because of the money. They do it because of the love. Like, this is something that is a part of who they are. And I think that's what's really interesting about what we do. It's really about what you love. And I don't think anyone ever wants to say goodbye to their first love. They want to continue it. And so I always challenge leadership is it's not just about looking when you're, when you're a partner now and looking around and saying, oh, who's going to be the next partner? Why don't you look at who's going to be the next partner as when you're a manager? When you're a manager and seeing that junior designer and say, that person has a spark, and how can I continue that spark? Because we definitely had it even in our own organization where I've seen people and I'm like, okay, I need to pay attention. I need to make sure that that person is supported, and anyone who's starting a new family, because it's very challenging, and you're not going to get the people in leadership if you're not giving them the support early on.
So, I mean, and this is kind of an obvious question, but why is that important to the industry or to your specific firm, or both? I mean, how does that benefit, taking that approach, what is the overall benefit to everybody?
Well, I mean, I hate to just say numbers, but I mean, 50% of the population is women. Like, come
Sure.
on. So you do, I mean, when you think about it, I would say inclusivity and diversity is like the most important thing. From that aspect alone, the more people and the more diverse opinions, thoughts that you have at the leadership level just makes for a richer conversation, right? So every time you can have a different person participating who might come from a different point of view, and that's social economic, that might be gender related, it might be women versus women or men, it might be, there's so many different levels, even when you think of special needs. And the more diverse the conversation can be, the better it is. And I think that's really what you're trying to get at, is really that idea of inclusivity and diversity. And that's something that resonates with our clients. So the more inclusive and more diverse that your own population is, and I mean the companies that are going after these projects, the more the client's going to look to you to say, hey, you are going to come up with a unique solution, because you're going to think of everyone in my organization. I might be an organization of 20 or 1,000 people or 3,000 people, and I have a very diverse population. How would you approach that if you have a team that all looks exactly the same or fit the same demographics? I think that's what comes to the table is we're better when we have more voices at the table, and we provide a better service to our clients. And in the end, as professionals, that's all we're trying to do. So it creates a richer conversation.
Sure. So I guess thinking about, perhaps young women in the industry, or even just any young people coming up in the architecture category industry, I guess what advice would you have for them as they kind of start in their early parts of their careers and getting into the mid parts of their careers?
I think one of the things I would say is, start building your network early on. Listen to people. Think about who speaks to you the most. It's not necessarily who you think is going to get you to the next level. It's really think about who you connect with and resonate with, and what they say resonates with you, and build that network, and listen, and walk around with either your notebook, your OneNote, take notes, because you don't know what you don't know. And there's so many people out there with such great information, and ask questions. The more questions you ask, the more information you're going to get. A lot of times it's very difficult for people in leadership roles to understand what may not be coming across. And it's really, so what I would say is always ask questions, and think about the people that you want to connect with. Whether, again, the beauty of social media is you can connect with people from all over the planet just by reaching out. And usually people really love that. They just love a hello, or to, just share some thoughts that's outside of their normal day-to-day. I think that's what's really important. The other thing is to look beyond your own walls for inspiration. Look beyond that. This is only one tidbit of everything out there. So look beyond your confines of your company or what projects you're looking at. Look beyond that to find those points of inspiration.
Okay. Is there anything you would say to young women specifically who are perhaps kind of at that point where they're thinking about starting a family and, are perhaps unsure of, where that's going to take them in their career, or or even if they want to continue in their career, or
Right.
you know, I'm sure there's a number of questions that might be going through their head at that
Yeah.
at that time. So,
you know, I think one of the most important things is trying to build a network. And I know this is kind of what I'm talking about before, but
sure.
and it's, you know, what is your support net? You know, is it a parent that's close by? Is it a friend? You know, looking to who can help when in times of need, and in also within your company, is there someone there who's in a leadership role who you can talk to and ask some questions? It's okay. There's nothing wrong about having a child. There's nothing wrong about having a child and working, period. That is your God-given right if you want to do it. So that would be my advice. And there are challenges, and you're going to work through it, and we can work through it together. It's engaging and asking the right questions, and thinking about what's the support network. If I need to work late, can my significant other do that? Communicating and almost over communicating. Being flexible with yourself, being flexible with your schedule. When I had my first child, I had a client in the West Coast, and I would put my 6-month-old at the time, and I would get on a conference call at 7:30. You know, was it ideal? No, but you know, it kind of worked for me because he was sleeping and I was at home, and it worked out. And so it gave me some flexibility if I needed to leave early. I think that's the big thing is being flexible and not being afraid of it. I think, you know, a lot of times we're so nervous about, is this going to cost me something? Is this going to prevent me from moving up? Is this going to, you don't know until you ask the questions. And we are all better for, you know, having these families. You know, I would say I'm a better professional for having it because my teams benefit from it, because my teams now, they're probably, you know, they get to explore things in a different way that I would never explore them. And I get to work with them in a different way. So it's really, you know, it's kind of like this family, and you want to surround yourself by really great people who's going to be that network. And I'm very, very fortunate to have my parents close by. I'm very fortunate to work with some amazing, amazing people who get it. And I don't hide behind my family. I don't pretend they don't exist. Of course, right now I do, but you know, they're there. And if something needs to happen, I'm going to be upfront and let everyone know. And by me as a woman in leadership, saying to junior designers, you know, it's my son's Boy Scout Pinewood Derby race, and I really need to be there. When they're in this position of leadership, or when they're even moving up in the ranks and they have that moment in their kids' lives, they know it's okay to tell me, because it's no longer a taboo topic. Children shouldn't be taboo. They exist.